Good morning, and thank you to our community members and the media for tuning in to today's briefing. Our interpreter for today is Margie Prop. Thank you, Margie, for once again providing your services to make this presentation more accessible to all in our community. Today, we turn to the work of the Economic Recovery Task Force that I convened in May of this year for the purpose of developing strategies to support Lincoln's economic recovery. As a result of the pandemic, Lincoln has felt the pain of lost businesses, lost jobs, lost income, and lost stability. That pain has been felt especially by our hourly workers, our low-wage workers, small businesses, people of color, women and minority-owned businesses, and businesses in especially hard-hit sectors like food and hospitality, arts, entertainment and recreation, and personal care, including massage, hair and nail, and body art services. Yet, amidst this disruption and uncertainty, we have found deep wells of compassion, innovation, and resilience as a community. Organizations have adapted by shifting operations online and reconfiguring their physical workspaces. People have adapted by donning masks and providing mutual aid to one another. And our city has adapted by deepening relationships across sectors so that we can all move forward and rebuild together. The road to recovery and renewal will not be an easy one. In many ways, COVID-19 laid bare some of the deep economic challenges already facing Lincoln, from rising underemployment to declining economic mobility. We all, residents, employers, public and private sector leaders, we all have a stake in Lincoln's economic recovery, and we all have a part to play. That is why I convened an Economic Recovery Task Force in May to bring together employers and community stakeholders for the purpose of developing some recommended strategies by which we all can participate in Lincoln's economic recovery in the face of COVID-19. Recognizing the interdependence of our physical, social, and economic well-being, I specifically asked the task force to develop strategies for supporting local businesses and employment while fostering public health, inclusion, and resilience in our community. This aligns with my office's Lincoln Forward initiative, which is about growing our city's quality of life by pursuing holistic, inclusive strategies for economic growth. Today marks an important milestone for both our Lincoln Forward initiative and the task force, as the task force has just released a report with strategic recommendations. The report can be found on our website, covid19.lincoln.ne.gov, under the Business Resources tab. Translated summaries of the task force recommendations also can be found on the website. I am deeply grateful to the task force co-chairs, Angie Muehlheisen and Ava Thomas. They led this effort and demonstrated remarkable commitment to the welfare of our community. I'm also grateful to the subcommittee chairs, Jasmine Kingsley, Corey Sampson-Vokoun, and Maribel Cruz, all of the task force members, policy aide Alyssa Martin, the Lincoln Partnership for Economic Development and their staff, and the many other individuals and organizations that contributed to and informed the work of the task force. And with that, I'd like to hand it over to the task force co-chairs to set the stage for their recommendations. And with that, Angie, I hand it over to you.
Thank you, Mayor. It really has been a privilege to serve on this task force with Ava and the entire group. I want to set the stage by just going over who task force members were, what the mission of our task force was, and then the guiding principles we used to accomplish our mission. So as the mayor alluded to, there were 18 task force members. And I think the beauty of our task force was the diversity of perspective that those members brought. We had members from virtually every sector of the Lincoln community: business leaders, nonprofit leaders, public sector leaders, individual community citizens. And I think that that diversity of perspective was essential and really informed our thinking on the committee. And as the mayor mentioned, we had 3 subcommittees, and that's where the real work got done, to be quite honest. These subcommittees worked hard, and their recommendations were mostly formed in these subcommittees. And as the mayor mentioned, Jasmine Kingsley, can't say her name, Jasmine Kingsley, she is the Senior VP of Legal and People at Huddle, and she was the chair of the Local Business Strategies Committee. And then Corey Sampson-Okun, VP of Sampson Construction, was the chair of the Local Workforce Strategies Subcommittee, and Maribel Cruz, PhD and Director of Leadership Consulting at Talent Plus, was the chair of the Local Sector Strategies Subcommittee. And these groups, I believe, met 5 times, and then our large group met 3 times. So there was a lot of time spent dialoguing on what some possible solutions could be to the issues in Lincoln. And we would be very remiss if we didn't call out Alyssa Martin, who is an aide to mayor. And she did a phenomenal job for us. She gently guided our task force from start to finish. She provided us with a lot of behind the scenes help with statistics, with research. She helped us finalize a survey that we sent out. And she also did the majority of the authoring in the report that we sent to the mayor's office. And in all reality, she really was invaluable to our committee. So we are very grateful to her, and Abe's going to thank some other people later on. Just to give you an idea of how we approached our task, we started with a sense of humility, and I mean that very sincerely. We realized that 18 individuals cannot solve all the issues that COVID-19 is presenting our community right now. And we recognize that we're not the only ones that have a role to play in helping our city recover. We know that whether we're residents, business owners, if we're in private or public sector, we all are going to play a role in helping our city recover. And we also realize that there's already some efforts being undertaken to help rebuild Lincoln. And so our thought process was, we just want to enhance what already is in motion and then add our thoughts to other ideas that might help the city. So the first thing we talked about was, what is the true mission of our task force? And what we decided was our mission is to support local businesses and employment as our economy recovers from COVID-19 while fostering public health, inclusivity, and resilience. And in order to accomplish that task, we decided that we needed some guiding principles. And the first one was, we wanted everything we did to be locally informed. And what we mean by that is, each city is unique. Although cities across the nation are facing issues with COVID-19, Lincoln has its unique circumstances and challenges, and wanted to understand those. And so in order to do that, we wanted it to be data-driven. We did not want our preconceived notions of what might be a solution to take over our thought process. What we did was, the Local Business Strategy Subcommittee sent out a survey, and we got back, it was a tremendous response. We got back 265 survey responses from every sector of our community, small businesses, large businesses, nonprofits. And we really used those survey responses. They weighted heavily on our recommendations to the mayor. The other thing we wanted is, we wanted everything to be actionable. We know that COVID-19 is very wide-reaching in its impact. So we wanted to make sure that the scope of what we were recommending was reasonable and that we could address issues in the near term. And we also wanted our actions to be timely. So that weighed heavily on us as we decided what solutions to put forward. And last but not least, we wanted our recommendations to be impactful. That is very important. When we discussed that, I bet we brought that up at every single meeting. When a solution was discussed, we said to ourselves, is this impactful to the city of Lincoln? And so that guided what direction went also. So those were some of the guiding principles. And now I'm going to turn it over to Ava, and she's going to continue on with that. And then we'll turn it over to the subcommittee chairs, who are going to present the actual recommendations that were made to the mayor. Ava?
Thanks, Angie. Well, in addition to the values and principles that Angie just covered, there were a couple of other principles I'd like to highlight that helped guide our approach with regard to development of these strategic recommendations. So, aligning with the mission of the task force, we really applied a lens of public health, inclusion, and resilience to the recommendations. And by doing so, we were able to identify the extent to which our health, economic, and social systems are interdependent. And this is really important because it provided us with a foundation to develop those strategies that have the potential to be both durable and lasting for Lincoln. For example, some of the recommendations involve supporting businesses in creating a workplace and a work environment for customers and employees that is safe. So the public health aspect of this recommendation is obviously clear, but there are also important inclusion and resilience aspects of that recommendation too. And by supporting businesses in this way, we can help them better weather future related challenges. And that's really the goal here, to improve resiliency through this crisis. I think it goes without saying that the safer our businesses are from a COVID-19 perspective, the more accessible they can be to people who are more at risk of contracting COVID-19. We also believe that when we make workplace safety paramount, we're also, in a sense, lifting up that resilience and inclusivity. Then finally, in the spirit of asset-based community development, we focused on strengthening and leveraging Lincoln's assets, including the resources, knowledge, and relationships that already exist here, instead of just focusing on the local needs and deficiencies. And the idea here is just to draw upon community strengths to build stronger, more sustainable communities in the future. Now, before I turn it over to the subcommittee co-chairs, I too want to express my deep appreciation to the many people who contributed to this report. This was, as Angie said, truly a collaborative effort that went well beyond the 18 members of the task force, including staff support, advisors, experts in the field who provided insight and additional contributions to this report. And as Angie said, and many others have noted, Alyssa really was our MVP. She was absolutely invaluable and kept us on track throughout. So thank you so much, Alyssa. And now I'll turn it over to Jasmine Kingsley, who will cover the local business strategies recommendations. Jasmine.
Thank you, Ava. Good morning. I'm Jasmine Kingsley, and I had the privilege of serving as chair of the Local Business Strategies Subcommittee. I echo the previous words of thanks to the many who contributed to this effort, but want to give special thanks to the members of the Local Business Strategies Subcommittee, with whom I'm so grateful to have served. So thank you, Wendy Birdsall, Quentin Brown, Dan Marvin, Bud Sinhorse, and Angie Muleisen. Special thanks as well to Alyssa Martin and to the over 265 organizations that responded to the COVID-19 Business Support Survey. As Angie mentioned, among the guiding principles of the task force were that our recommendations be data-driven and locally relevant. And these survey responses were critical to this effort and directly informed the recommendations of the Local Business Strategies Subcommittee. Our subcommittee came up with two sets of recommendations. The first in the area of cultivating opportunities for direct business-to-business support, and the second in the area of promoting local economic resilience and inclusion. With respect to the first, almost 75% of organizations that responded to our survey said that they were interested in opportunities designed to foster peer-to-peer, business-to-business support. The deep caring that Lincolnites have for one another is evidenced in the many ways members of our community have rallied together to support one another through this crisis. The same can be said of our businesses. We know COVID-19 has impacted different organizations differently, with some struggling in areas where others have had success, and vice versa. Members of our local business community are eager to leverage the experiential tuition dollars that they've already paid navigating this and other crises by sharing information and assets that they can learn from one another. Our subcommittee therefore recommends organizing business-to-business town halls or forums in which businesses directly share information, resources, and experiences with one another on topics that are relevant to the business community. Topics such as how to access financial assistance, how to create a safe working environment, and how to support employee mental health and connectedness. According to our survey, these topics were of primary interest to our local organizations. We know these conversations are already happening in some networks, and our hope is that these opportunities will both broaden and strengthen existing relationships among local businesses and lead to greater sharing of information and best practices, the benefits of which could extend well beyond the COVID-19 crisis. With respect to promoting local economic resilience and inclusion, evidence shows that one of the best ways to boost our local economy is by investing strategically in local businesses, small businesses, and women and minority-owned businesses. They can do this in part by reinvesting in the economy. Sorry, I'm having some connectivity issues here, so sorry. They can do this in part by reinvesting in the local economy and by thinking about this as really a bucket full of water. So we think about what's called the multiplier or the local recirculation effect. And if we imagine that the local economy is this bucket full of water, every time we spend money that goes outside of the local area, it leaks out of the bucket. Oftentimes we focus on trying to pour more money into our area so that we keep filling up this leaky bucket. But we ought to also direct our efforts toward preventing money from leaking out in the first place. We can do this by recirculating more dollars locally through local spending. The economic benefits of this approach have been well documented. One study cited in our report estimated that 10% shift in spending from national chains to locally owned businesses in a Maine county would add an additional $127 million in local economic activity and 874 new jobs, generating over $35 million in wages. We therefore recommend that residents, employers, and public and private sector leaders target spending toward local businesses, businesses with less than 50 employees, and women and minority-owned businesses. We specifically recommend that the City of Lincoln provide training to these businesses so that they can better compete for city contracts, and that the city revise its procurement policies and practices so as to enhance access to city contracting opportunities. Businesses in a position to do so are encouraged to take a pledge to spend 1% more locally. And likewise, residents are encouraged to buy local and prioritize small and women and minority-owned businesses in their spending. Finally, if there is one thing we've learned from COVID-19, it's that access to childcare is fundamental to our community's economic resilience and inclusion. In Lincoln, 75% of children under the age of 6 have all parents in the workforce, and that's as compared to the national average of about 66.7%. We also know that too much of the childcare burden continues to fall on women, minorities, and low-wage workers. In light of this challenge, employers with the wherewithal to do so are encouraged to continue providing flexible work arrangements for employees, to support or subsidize employee childcare where possible, and to extend COVID-19 family-related leave policies. Thank you. With that, I'll turn it over to Brian.
Morning, everyone. My name is Brian Seck. I serve as the Director of Workforce Development for the Lincoln Partnership for Economic Development, and I am not Corey Vakun Sampson. Corey is our chair of the Local Workforce Strategies Committee. She was not able to join us today, so you have to listen to me instead. I would like to thank our committee members, John Krogan from Emmanuel Communities, Jose Lemus from Collective Impact Lincoln, Dr. Marco Barker from the University of Nebraska-Lincoln, Sue Martin from the AFL-CIO, Kim Russell, and our fellow staff support, of which I am one, Marguerite Himmelberg from Southeast Community College, Kaylee Hogan-Schnitker from the Partnership, and Dylan Wren from the City of Lincoln Workforce Development. Our committee really came up with two sets of recommendations. One in the area of increasing utilization of existing local workforce development resources, and the other in the area of upskilling and reskilling our Lincoln residents who need to connect to new careers. With respect to the first, we know that a historic number of people have filed claims since the crisis started. What's less known is that there are several resources in our community for workforce development and career connection that are underutilized. We recommend that employer participation in existing workforce development programs and networks, like AnyWorks, EmployLink, and the American Job Center, be simplified and amplified. We also recommend that employers utilize existing resources, such as the Lincoln Human Resource Management Association, or LHRMA, to revise and simplify job descriptions so that people with relevant skills and experiences are not dissuaded from applying for jobs because they don't understand the words in the job description. If you think about a person who may have got laid off from a hotel who did house cleaning, she may not realize, or he may not realize, that a finish cleaner position at Sampson Construction is a job that fits her skills. That's a position that cleans a finished building, but isn't like a laborer position. If she or he does not know that, we won't be able to reconnect that person to careers. In addition, Southeast Community College has scholarships from CARES Act dollars that are available and also has many locally focused workforce certificate programs to help people reconnect to careers. With respect to upskilling and reskilling to stay relevant and competitive, both during COVID-19 and beyond, many of Lincoln's workers will need to learn new skills and trades. The old model of learn, earn, and retire no longer applies. Now it's learn, unlearn, relearn, and repeat. We recommend that the City of Lincoln create incentives for employers to upskill and reskill workers, especially those who have been displaced by COVID-19. We also recommend that workforce and education partners develop ready-to-work courses that directly lead to employment opportunities, such as the Lincoln Manufacturing Council's manufacturing class, which directly leads to a manufacturing job fair with 15 partner members after a 6-week introductory class. Thank you very much for your time on behalf of Corey VaCoon-Sampson, and I'm going to turn it over to Maribel Cruz. Thank you again.
Thank you so much, Brian. I'm Maribel Cruz. I chaired the Local Sector Strategies Committee, and I do want to echo the sentiments of Jasmine and others, thanking our co-chair, Ava Thomas, and also our committee members, Matt Bavugian, William Sintani, Shannon Harner, and Nada Sepapur. When we gathered as a committee, it became pretty clear that we were going to focus on 2 sets of recommendations. One was going to be in the area of workplace safety and consumer confidence, and the other recommendation was going to concern the area of financial assistance and investment in new businesses. When we look at the sectors that were most affected by COVID-19, we find that these sectors concerned areas where people were coming into close contact with one another, where there were physical gatherings of individuals. These sorts of businesses typically involve things like hospitality, accommodations, food service, the arts, entertainment, personal care, retail, and even manufacturing, where people are in close physical contact with one another. One of the issues that came up quite quickly was, how do we restore consumer confidence so that people are comfortable coming into businesses? And one of the areas of recommendation we focused on was reducing the incidence and spread of COVID-19 via an increased awareness of personal protective measures. And so one of the recommendations that was put forth by this committee was to create an awareness campaign highlighting what local businesses are doing well, what kind of innovative and common sense public health measures are they taking that can increase the feeling of confidence in these businesses. And how can we aid public and private sector leaders in helping businesses increase their access to personal protective equipment? Therefore, again, one of the recommendations was to create a public campaign, again, kind of increasing that awareness and highlighting businesses that are doing this exceptionally well. A second recommendation focused on the area of financial impact and how these sectors have been particularly hard hit. When we think about areas such as the arts and entertainment, personal care, retail, hotels, food service, these areas did in fact experience a profound effect to their bottom line and their top line revenue. So the financial impact cannot be minimized. To this, we recommended that the City of Lincoln establish a fund to provide grants to businesses especially hard hit by COVID-19. This would include micro businesses that employ a small number of people. This would include women and minority-owned businesses. And it would also include these businesses in hard-hit sectors. And additionally, we want to encourage investment in new businesses and support a culture of entrepreneurship, especially as new businesses come online. We want to make sure that we are supporting and nurturing them as much as possible.
Thank you. Thank you, Maribel. And thank you to Angie and Ava and Jasmine and Brian, who's not Corey, but thank you too. And to all of the task force members and everyone who contributed to this work behind the scenes over these last few months. Thank you. This is incredibly important to our community. And now that your work has been delivered, it's time to focus on the execution of your recommended strategies. Execution is, of course, the key to our success. And if anyone in our community is interested in learning more or contributing to this effort, which really will require all of us, we want everyone to be involved in order to have a more collective impact, please feel free to email us at recoverytaskforce@lincoln.ne.gov. My hope is that as you look at this report, you will see a call to action, and that by harnessing our collective energies and talents and experiences and perspectives, we can plant the seeds for a more economically prosperous, inclusive, and resilient future. For the city's part, we look forward to working with community members, elected leaders, and business partners to implement the recommendations. Let's get to work. Thank you. And if there are any questions from the media, we'd be happy to take those too.
Riley Johnson with the Lincoln Journal-Star.
Hi, Riley.
Hi, how are you? So
Thank you.
one of the things mentioned in the report is the Fast Forward Fund and its use by the Beitler administration during the housing crisis and recession in 2008. Can you talk a little bit about whether that approach is something that you will be looking to implement to establish that fund for businesses?
Yeah, thank you for the question, Riley. We, of course, recognize the incredible financial hardship felt across our community, and particularly by businesses impacted by the pandemic. And so we will be looking to many sources to try to supplement and respond to their financial hardship, supplement our work to prevent further hardship and to amplify their recovery. And what I would say about that is that first and foremost, we want to try to bring down more of our federal and state dollars. You know, we are working with our federal partners, we are working with the state, and we want to make sure that we are maximizing the resources that have been sent down to local communities for the purposes of addressing the impacts of the pandemic. Locally, we, of course, have been impacted here at the City of Lincoln. We had a $12 million budget gap that we had to fill in the current fiscal year. But we do have the Fast Forward Fund in normal times is meant to spur on economic development. In the past, the funds have been used in large part to try to attract new businesses to our community. Recognizing the circumstances that we're in today, that could be a potential source that we turn to, although by ordinance we would need to make some changes and work with the council in order to be able to tap into those funds. It is a limited source of funding, so it is not something that is replenishable. So we'd want to be thoughtful about how we use it, but we think right now is a time when we need to be considering all the options available to us. Other questions?
Mayor, do you have any sense for the sort of economic activity and whether, Lincoln's consumers are, behaving like, more normal times, or is there still some signs of sort of hesitancy to shop and go out and support businesses?
I think that there's a lot of uncertainty still. We did get some information about sales tax receipts for the month of August, and I believe they were 5% over last year at August 2019. I can double check that figure for you, Riley. We take that as a hopeful sign, but we also know that we aren't having Husker football this fall, and that is a huge generator of economic activity locally. The City of Lincoln benefits from that. Our local retailers and hospitality industry benefits from that. And with that gaping hole in our sort of local economy this fall, we are, very cautious about our optimism. And so we'll be monitoring it very closely and working to take these recommendations and try to implement them to try to prevent further economic hardship and to instead promote rebuilding and recovery that reaches so many in our community. Other questions? Well, with that, I want to thank once again our co-chairs, Angie Muehlheisen and Ava Thomas, and all of our task force members for their incredible efforts. This is a volunteer effort. It is another sign of the compassion and the thoughtfulness and the dedication of community members. And again, this is a call to action to all of us to help rebuild our community with an eye towards fostering public health, inclusivity, and resilience so that we are on our pathway to recovery in our local economy. Thank you so much for tuning in.